Hell yeah. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 43 of the Sailor Jerry podcast. My name is Matt Cothran. I am still your host. Today is Thursday, August 25th, 2022, and Sailor Jerry Spiced Rum is still most definitely made the old school way. 92 proof, bold and smooth as hell. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached another monumental milestone in Sailor Jerry podcast history. The podcast is now as old in episodes as I am in real life. We have caught up to each other. Space and time have collided, and the Sailor Jerry podcast and its host are now perfectly aligned and in sync. I am very stoked to be back talking to you guys. I hope everybody is doing good out there. Shout out worldwide, all the Sailor Jerry podcast listeners. Do me a favor, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please subscribe to it. Leave a comment, leave a review. All that stuff helps. Nothing much going on in my world. I am still very excited to be home, loving life, just hanging out here by the beach. Got some tours coming up in the fall. Got a big tour with the Chats, Drug Church, and Scowl. That's going through the U.S. We also have some dates coming up with Robot Monster and Meatwave. And all of those bands got new records out. So if you haven't heard any of them, hit Spotify, hit Apple Music, wherever you listen to music. The Chats have a new record out called Get Fucked. Drug Church is still riding off Hygiene. Scowl, How Flowers Grow. Meatwave's new record is just about to come out, and Robot Monster just put out a new record a couple days ago. So lots of new music out there for you guys to check out, and hopefully we'll see you on the road in the fall. Without further ado, it's time for episode 43. Adam Wallacavage is a rare breed. In this episode, we catch up with the punk rock chandelier guru and look back at his very unique, self-made road to success. From photographing the iconic 90s skateboarding scene to going into business with an octopus and turning his legendary Philadelphia home into a funhouse, Adam Wallacavage is the definition of a life less ordinary. He's a good friend of mine, and it was awesome catching up. So sit back, relax, pour yourself some Sailor Jerry, and let's go.
Any way you want it, you can call me any day. Hey. Any way you want it, you can always hear me say, hey. It's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright. So any way you want it, that's the way it would be.
What's up, my man? How are you?
Good.
I appreciate you taking the time to be on the Sailor Jerry podcast.
Well, it's funny because like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I was like, and I started thinking about, I was like, wait a second, I know about Sailor Jerry because I did so much stuff with them back in the day.
Tell us about it. What'd you do?
They had an office in Philly, and then I did the interior. They made it into a store. And so I did the whole interior with that. And that was really fun because basically you could do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
We had this really cool red and black flocked wallpaper made. So all the walls are this red and black. And then I was just able to, I just went to junk shops and I just bought all these old lamps and things and started making just whatever out of that. And it was just really fun just to see what we could pull off with there's a limited budget and whatnot. And then years later, but I was also shooting all their photos for their clothes. So I would they would have models come over to my house with all the new stuff. And then we did the bigger store, which was really fun because it was better budget. And that's when I made two of my biggest chandeliers for that store, which was fun. So that only lasted a little while. And then also I was shooting all the bands. So that's how I think I first saw you was, I think in Las Vegas at the Double
No
Down.
way.
Yeah. So I shot those shows.
Dude, that's crazy. I didn't realize. I mean, I knew that you had worked, for Sailor Jerry in the past. Obviously, when we came through on tour in Philly, we talked about it briefly, but I didn't know it went back to the Vegas show and
Yeah.
you shot that show and that's where we first met. That's a fucking trip.
Yeah. That was fun because they would go out there twice a year. And so I'd go out there and that was great. It was a fun gig. And then they had the shows at the store. And they would just be right out on the sidewalk. It was wild. It's also like Jay Retard and got out a whole bunch. Eagles of Death Metal, Guido Hustler. There's a bunch of bands.
Yeah,
And,
we did a bunch of shows back in the day. We did some Bronx shows. We did, I think in the Philly store or maybe in a club nearby. We did one with Two Gallants with the mariachi band, and we did some other stuff with just a bunch of different bands. But it was, there was a bunch of shows back in the day.
Yeah, so it was good having I was kind of doing everything, from photography to building stuff, and it was good fun.
Awesome, man. Well, that's really cool. And it's nice to have you back in the mix here in the Sailor Jerry world. Obviously looking behind you, there's a whole lot going on there, and we definitely want to get into it, but let's take it back a little bit before we do. Were you born and raised in Philly? Because you've been in Philly as long as I've known you.
I've been in Philly since '91, but I'm only from like 20 minutes outside. So I was coming when I was first started coming in, like 14 to skateboard. So just take the trolley and the trains in. So I hung out around South Street when I was a kid, did all that kind of stuff.
Did artistry run in the family? Do you have any brothers or sisters, anything like that?
I have 2 brothers and sisters. I grew up in a really cool house with we had 2.5 acres with our neighbors. It was nice, a little valley in the suburbs with trees around us and a stream. So I was always making forts. That was like kind of my first introduction to interiors, I guess, or exteriors. Putting forts over the stream, making underground forts, and then building skateboard ramps. So I had a skateboard ramp at my house for a little while until some kid broke his leg on it. And then we got sued. But then I built another one at my neighbor's house. So
you got the kid sued who broke his leg?
Yeah, he snuck onto the property when he wasn't allowed. And my mom tried kicking him off, and then he broke his leg. So that was I don't even know. We could have had the coolest stuff if that didn't happen.
Leave it up to one lawsuit happy kid to ruin all the fun.
Well, his parents, he was mortified, but because he was like instantly uncool after that. Everybody came to the ramp, There wasn't much to skate back then. It was like a early mid 80s.
Yeah. Who were when you were a kid? Who were some of your favorite skaters?
I mean, locally would just be like Chuck Treese, and then my neighbor, and people like that. But then Caballero and Hustle, Neil Blender. I like the creative. I mean, that was so influential, the 80s skateboarding, because everybody had their own style, and it was so distinct. So when I actually started shooting for Thrasher in the early 90s, it was a kind of disappointment because I was into the vert skating, which was dying, and it was more like street skating, but everybody looked the same to me. It was weird, and I was like, this is not what I was into or what was accustomed to, but I had fun with it.
Yeah, that's a trip, because you're right about the difference in identity between 80s and 90s for sure, because 90s was, that's my era of skateboarding for sure. And you make a valid point. Everyone did kind of look the same. Of course, you had, people who stood out, but just stylistically, it was baggy jeans, it was oversized t-shirts, and that was kind of just running the game. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it did kind of all blend in for a little bit there.
Yeah.
When did you start like falling in love with photography? When did that start happening?
In probably mid to late 80s, because I was making zines. I was really into so
okay,
like making I first started with stencils, like Thrasher stencils or whatever it was, and then I wanted to make T-shirts and screen
Yeah.
stickers. So, and my friends at the beach in Cape May, there were two surfers who were 10 years older than me, who were like my mentors, Joe and Lisa. And Lisa worked with Surfer Magazine. Joe used to be he was a pro surfer with GNS. And
No way.
early skateboarders. They used to work at a Kona surf shop in Wildwood, putting the bearings in the clay wheels. That's how long they go back. So they used to make screen prints and T-shirts, and that's what I wanted. So I started making zines almost as an excuse to have something to make product for, T-shirts and stickers. So I called it Wonder Rolling News, which was from Skateboard Madness, one of my favorite movies. And I would change the name. It was like the first one was the Iguana. It was like Independent Jones, and then Bat Cat. So I'd make all these drawings and comics, but then and I would have my friend take photos for me. But it just became such a hassle that I started taking photos myself. Actually, Dave Fairman, who I used to skate on his team for, he introduced me to photography and wide angle lenses and things like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I got really into that. And then I worked at a photo shop doing 1 hour photo lab. So I was able to shoot photos like every day, and then I developed them when I got to work. So that's kind of how I learned. Like today, you could pick up, your phone or your digital camera, and you see right away where you're making mistakes. Or back then, you would shoot a roll of film. You won't know if you screwed up or not until it gets developed. So I was able to do this every day. So I kind of developed a little bit of an edge there, I guess. Although I never got super technical with skate photography. I was like, I may have, when I look back at this stuff, I'm like, there's like little things I didn't know about. Like I would use the flashes too bright and everything was blurry, even though I was shooting fisheye lenses. A lot of technical stuff, but I didn't have much money either. So
I saw somewhere that you used an apartment like peephole for a fisheye with your little 110 with the one. Is that true?
Yeah, that was my first fisheye lens, and I got that idea from Geoff Graham down in Ocean City, Maryland Bowl, and he was talking about putting the peephole in the 110 camera, and it worked. So it was really tiny. But
yeah,
you get the picture back, and it's like a tiny little thing. But I was like, oh, fisheye! I'm officially a skate photographer because you had it. The other problem though is like the obsession with fisheyes is when I look at my photos from the late 80s, early 90s, everything is with the fisheye.
Everything. Yeah. Everything.
And it's like kind of funny. Actually, there's a funny story too, was because I was like, man, why did I use anything else? And then I did a photo shoot with Shepard Fairey for Juxtapose magazine, and we shot it on top of my friend's building, the Sparkle Factory in downtown Los Angeles. So it was Shepard leaning over and wheat pasting this piece, and I leaned really far out with the fisheye and shot it. You can see the ace before the ace was there, and it's a neat photo. It was funny because I ran into Glenn Friedman, and he's like, he came right up. He was like, "Oh, I love that photo that you shot of Shepard and Juxtapose." Like, "Oh, wow, thanks. So, it's great to get a compliment from you." And then he's like, "But why did you use a fisheye? That was so cliche." And then we got interrupted. I'm like, "No, I did that on purpose because it was an homage to overuse of fisheye back, but I never got to tell him that." I was like, God damn.
Speaking of Friedman, he's one of the guys to me, like from my era growing up, that, I mean, he was just, he's definitely in my top 5, like, photographers. Who are some of your favorites?
Like Irving Penn, I would say, and then like Diane Arbus. And I just think the people who are just, I don't even know who shot the photo, but there's a picture of Steve Caballero at his old ramp, I think in San Jose, and there was a hammer. I think it was a hammer that was on the deck. So it was just a photo of Steve, but there's a hammer in the foreground, and there's something like that clicked. Like, I don't know why I thought that was so cool. There was a hammer on the deck, so I kind of used that. Just everything in the 80s was just so different.
When you were skating, how good were you on a level 1 to 10?
I thought I was great because I was the only vert skater in my neighborhood. And then I went to Ocean City, Maryland, and that was just like, my ego went straight down, which was good. It was like, that was crazy. That's when I met like Dan Tagg and Rick Czernowski and his brother, and Fred Smith was skating there. That was a scene. Darren Mendito, Tom Boyle. I mean, it was incredible. But like, I could not keep up to. I mean, I was just like floored. Like, I never saw skateboarding like that because we didn't have it on the East Coast. I mean, there was only that ramp, and that was pretty far away. Like vert skating was really dead on the East Coast. Although it was fun. I mean, everybody had their own little scene, but I had my own scene. And then I was like the best in my scene. It was always fun. I did some stuff on that ramp at Ocean City, Maryland, which I would have never done. Like just like backsides at Smith into the channel, just out of total fear, of like falling in front of all these pros. It was so hard to skate because they were so good, and they would just snake you constantly. So it was like, really hard. You get your chance, you're just like, you don't bail. So that was fun.
In the 90s, in the early 90s, when you're shooting, there's a lot of pretty amazing photographs that you've taken. I saw one of Huff in front of the Twin Towers, which was a great one. What are some moments that kind of stand out to you from that era of just like being a part of it? You know what I mean? Because it really was a pretty iconic era in skateboarding. I mean, I know the 80s were the 80s, but the 90s had a huge impact.
In a weird way, at the time, it felt like everything was over, but then everything was starting up again from scratch. But didn't really understand it necessarily. And it took a long time to realize I was like actually in a cool scene. Like I didn't know. The only problem with the street skating is that wasn't my thing. I didn't know what people were doing. I got some cool photos, but I had no idea what the tricks were because I was in the vert skating. So there was that, but then the whole art scene in the 90s too. Like when I met Chip Berry and then going around with him in New York City, there's Phil Frost, Aaron Rose, the whole Beautiful Loser type, that whole scene, the Ledge Gallery scene. And just that, it was like, it took a little while, but like, wow, this is like the thing of this time, and I was like in the middle of it, which was pretty cool. But it was very quiet too, because there was just like, small groups of people who were into stuff like that. I guess the skate scene felt pretty small too. And there was only a few photographers on the East Coast, myself and Kelly Ryan, and then Ryan G. And there was a number of people, but when we first started shooting for Thrasher, it was like me and Kelly Ryan together. Because I was pretty shy too. So I was just always quiet, and which isn't the best thing for a photographer. So if you have more of a personality, then you could really like, I'm better at it now. But when I was younger, I was scared to go up to people and talk to them. And, even though I was there to take their picture, so.
In skateboard photography, was a lot of it just kind of like, knowing the ebbs and flows of skateboarding and just being in the right place at the right time and just kind of point and shooting? Or were you setting up, lights and doing shit like that? Or how kind of raw was it?
Well, there was a lot of setup because we're trying to use multiple flashes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy because I didn't have the best equipment. So and also didn't have any money. I didn't have much film. So it was like everything had to work. When they wanted sequences, that was like got really stressful because I'm like, all right, well, this roll of film is like the price of a dinner, So and people didn't land stuff back then very often. So you're getting this technical street trick with like 2 rolls of film, and then you have to know when you take your finger off the trigger because they're gonna bail because you don't want to like waste film.
Yeah,
it was actually kind of funny because I think with Toy Machine, I shot I think a couple sequences for them for their ads, or I took my finger off the trigger because I thought they were going to bail. They didn't, and I put my finger back on to finish the trick, so I missed like a frame or two. So Ed Templeton was fun. He would let me do this. I would draw the photo of what I missed.
That's really cool, man. Yeah, Ed's one of those guys. He's a Huntington Beach legend. Yeah. He's just one of the coolest, man. I mean, creatively speaking, skateboarding, I mean, everything that guy does is just super original and just has its own unique, just kind of fucked up style, man. I mean, and photography too. I mean, it's crazy how dedicated he is.
Yeah, I was so stoked when I met him in, it was probably like, I don't even know, 94, 95 down in Tampa. And they were just like, because yeah, it was just like I just totally related with the art and the skateboarding and photography. It was really fun, super stoked. And I did some work with him. Like I just loved doing the ads because I knew that they were going to be really cool, like whatever.
Yeah.
And then he let me design some decks for him in 1999. That was fun. So I used to do.
Yeah. Did those? You did a whole like line for Toy Machine, right?
Yeah, I did 7 boards.
Dang, what was that like designing decks? Was it cool?
Yeah, I designed them like I would do the screen prints I used to do.
Yeah.
My friend Allison Childs helped me. She worked at the ad agency I worked at. So she put everything in the computer back then and they would send them through the internet.
The early days of the internet.
It would take all night to send these files over there. And then they were hand screened at Tomieto. And I insisted that they use actual glow in the dark ink.
Oh yeah.
So I don't even know if most people knew that the decks glowed in the dark. But yeah, I actually just hung them up in my hallway. It's 23 years later.
Before you kind of graduated into, making chandeliers and doing a whole bunch of stuff that you're doing now, there was a book released, Ginkgo Press, Monster Size Monsters, 2006. That's a collection of 15 years of your photography. Did that signify anything to you? Was it just kind of like I'm going to move on to something else like now and do something? Or was it kind of an end of a chapter or was it just a collection of your work?
It was a collection of the work, but definitely things changed after that. 2007, 2008, that's when I made a transition from making a living as a photographer to sculptor.
Walk me through the early stages of you getting into sculpting, figuring out what you wanted to do, and kind of getting into it.
Well, I took sculpting classes when I went to University of the Arts, and
Okay.
But I did some mold making. I did some stone sculpture, carving, and then I had a sculpture class. And I did everything. When I went to college, I went a little bit later. So I was more focused on, I was a photography major, but mainly so I had access to a lab.
Yeah.
And I just took everything. Because my dad told me when I was a kid, like, I wanted to be an artist. He's like, well, you better have a lot of things to fall back on. So,
Yeah.
and then, so I actually joined the military. I joined the Navy Seabees when I was 19.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Went to boot camp in San Diego and my training in Fort Hueneme to be a builder in Navy Seabees.
No way.
Mm-hmm. And then that was 1989. So I was in for 8 years in the reserves. So I had that. So I figured I'd get all the hard
Adam Wallacavage went to boot camp.
Yeah. San Diego.
Damn. Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome.
Recruiter. When I went to recruiter, I was like, I'm not signing this unless I go to San Diego. Because I'm not going to Orlando. I wanted to go to San Diego because of the weather and the skateboarders out there. So that was pretty interesting. It actually just went back to that base in San Diego. It's like an art center now. And
Oh, really?
Like, totally tripped me out because I didn't know where I was. I went with some friends. Like, oh, you should see our new art center and whatever it was. And we went into this bar.
Like, wait a minute.
I'm sitting in this place, like, something feels really weird and familiar. I'm like, this was a pizza place that was on base. We only went to once on our Liberty weekend because we weren't allowed in certain areas of the base. So that was a trip. But
let's hold on. Let's dive into this a little bit because this is super interesting to me because coming out of high school, I had a bunch of friends who were joining the Navy and I almost joined the Navy. When you went, like, what was your experience like when you first got there?
I remember instantly being like, I remember when I had to call home after we got off the bus, off the airplane, and then I just remember like, why did I do this again? Like, and I was like, oh, because when I was a kid, HBO had this Nostradamus special, and we thought there was going to be, all this bad stuff's going to happen. I'm not going to get drafted. I'm going to join the military and get that over with. This is like a little thing in my head, I think, when I was a kid. So I almost was like, I want to get the military service out of the way so I'll never get drafted. That was something. I don't know if that was really, but there was a part of it in my head. I remember thinking that when I got there. But I enjoyed it, and because I think it was a really good thing for me too as an artist.
Yeah.
I never got stuck in a bubble of just people who are like-minded, say, or whatever. I just got a pretty good spectrum of different types of people I've worked with. And then, I was with these guys for my battalion for 8 years, and they're all blue collar, regular, whatever it is, so I was never just stuck around the same type of people, or skateboarders, or just artists, or just musicians, or whatever it is. So that helped me have a broader view of things. I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. That's fucking cool, man. Do you think it helped with like just kind of honing in your like confidence and, things like craftsmanship, and just like being able to like kind of flow creatively and like think, oh, I can try this, I can build this, I can make this,
Yeah, my mom always like, how do you know how to do that? And I was like, I don't know. And I was like, actually, I think it's just common sense and confidence.
Yeah.
And you're like, just figure it out and then just go for it. And if it doesn't work, then do it again. That's how I did the house. When I bought my house, I just kind of went for it.
Let's talk about this house.
Okay, so I helped start this place in Philadelphia called Space 1026. And it was art studios with a gallery in it. And we had a skateboard ramp for a little bit. And we had everybody, all kinds of different artists. We'd have a show every month. So it was always fun to have like new energy every month. And we took over the third floor, and I took over this big room. The top floor of the building was pretty much untouched from the 40s. It was sealed off. So we snuck up in there, and all the windows, everything was like covered, and it was just everything was boarded up. This is right in Chinatown in Center City, Philadelphia. So it was pretty creepy and cool. And I got this big room, and I rebuilt the whole room and decorated it. Got this flocked wallpaper, and that was my photo studio. So I wanted this like kind of chic, neat, like kind of Victorian style, weird room to take pictures in and just whatever.
Yeah.
But then I was realizing I'm like, I like doing this, but I don't own this. And, I don't really want to put too much work into a place I don't own. And so in 2000, I was able to buy a house, and houses were pretty cheap back then. And I ended up getting this giant place. It's right on Broad Street. I mean, it was cheap. And, but I didn't know at the time because everything was cheap. So I was able to get that. And then I was really obsessed with like Art Nouveau and also Victorian looking stuff. And so that like when I started I did the front room was first. And everything back then was like pretty much self-taught because there was no information about how to do ornamental plaster work. And so my neighbor was like, well, they used to cut the shape out and then they'd slide it across the ceiling with plaster, wet plaster, and that's how they did the molding. I was like, all right. And I figured it out. I did one, it was like, took me forever. And then I made a mold of that. And that's how it's kind of started. Then about 5 years later, I met my friend, Kathy Vissar, who has this incredible plaster studio in Philadelphia. And she's super cool. And she let me use all her molds. She's this massive collection of molds. And so I just like really went for it after that.
I read that, you started making chandeliers for your underwater themed dining room. And that room
that was the first room that really like, oof, wow, I could really do whatever I wanted here.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought was really cool is that you chose to kind of start with the octopus because you can kind of make it do anything.
I wanted to do like an Art Nouveau room, but I didn't know how to sculpt and I didn't know how to do any of that I didn't know what I was doing. So I just kind of pulled off whatever I could pull off. And then I knew I wanted it to be like a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah.
Because I was obsessed with the Nautilus and I just always loved the Art Nouveau style. So when it came to the chandeliers, I was like, well, Jesus, like the octopus is kind of like the perfect thing, and I was like, I wonder if anybody else did that. I mean, it was early internet, but I didn't see any.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I came up with something original, but it's just an octopus. But also I was into octopus as well, just because they're cool.
Yeah.
But I was also really into Charles Addams and the Addams Family comics. And Wednesday had an octopus on her bed.
Oh yeah.
It was so cool. And also I discovered the book Art Forms in Nature by Ernst Haeckel. And that's like, I think like 1901 or something. They're just beautiful drawings, sort of Art Nouveau style, Audubon style of sea life and sea creatures. And then there's a part with the sea life as art and decoration. So that's what really I was like, this is what I want. And I was also
Yeah.
ceiling medallions and that kind of stuff. So I wanted, my first aim with that was to have a place I could use as a backdrop for photography, because I liked what David LaChapelle. He had like a room in New York, I guess. He would change the colors, and he used it as like a backdrop to room. And I was like, damn, I want to make my whole house like that.
Yeah.
Which I kind of did. So
when did you kind of first notice that people were like kind of taking interest in what you were doing?
It was pretty soon, I think.
Yeah. There wasn't really anything like it. I mean, there's still not. I mean, you have such a you have such an original vision, and the way you bring it to life is, through your own hands. So it's really something that is very, very unique. You know what I mean? And I think that's what really grabs people about it. It's just, I mean, of course it looks fucking awesome, but it's just something that you just can't really, you don't really see anywhere else. It's really, really cool. And I know, it once it did kind of hit, it's like, I felt like, you started seeing your work like everywhere, man. It was cool. Like, it was all over the internet, which was, probably a big thing for you.
Yeah. And it kind of worked out perfectly. Like when in the 90s, I wanted to be like, I really wanted to show in a ledge gallery with all the other artists who I was friends with and liked. And I wanted to be a painter. I had to be like this person. I need to be like that person. And I was very insecure, which is normal. And I was trying to do things that wasn't really my style. And I thought I was what I was supposed to do. And it was like, when I did the house, it was totally for myself. Mm-hmm. And when I did the chandeliers, they were totally for myself. And I realized, like, I really like doing this. So, the first chandeliers I made was in 2001. As far as like switching careers, I was already shooting photos for Jonathan Levine Gallery when he was in New Hope and then Philadelphia. And when he moved to New York, he offered me a solo show in New York, and I made 7 chandeliers for that. So
yeah, was that the first big show?
Yeah, and I sold 1 piece, and I just remember being so stoked, because I would shoot photos for the ad agency that I would stress over, and it was just like, they're just advertisement photos usually.
Yeah.
There wasn't any like real good feeling after that, although the money was good. But when I sold the chandelier, I think it took me a month to make, and I got paid about the same as I would for a day with a good shoot. But I was just so stoked to see this. My friend Dixie actually bought the first commission, and I just made something for her recently. But I was just so appreciative of that, and then that kept me going, and I just focused on the chandeliers. So as well, like I was still working with like Shepard Fairey, Roger Gassman. They put Roger
Swindle, right? You were doing Swindle?
Yeah, I was doing the Swindle stuff, and that was the first time I was able to really shoot photos like that I wanted to shoot in my style. And it would be different assignments, but it was like they were hiring me to do it for my look, which I didn't really get to do with the agency. And, that was like, it wasn't a lot of money, but it was just a great opportunity. I met so many cool people, and then also shooting with Juxtapose. So I was always meeting different artists.
Yeah.
So the thing I was really into. So I have so many art friends because of that. And then music, I met so many different people in the music industry, and then it just keeps, piling on. You meet like musicians, they come through town, they introduce you to whatever band, their friends, or whatever on tour, and then it's great. It just keeps adding. So it's always like fun being wherever.
Yeah, man. The Swindle mag was awesome. If people out there are unfamiliar about it, it was Shepard Fairey mag. That I don't know how many issues it got out. It was like, and they were hardback too, right?
They did it hardback, so it was a magazine, but they didn't want you to just throw it away. So they tried to make it so it was like worth keeping. Yeah.
What's the biggest chandelier you've made to date?
Oh, I made this piece for someone in British Columbia. It's this giant black one. Actually, I made 2 really big ones for a bar, I think in Cancun or Tulum. I forget.
Are they a pain in the ass to ship? How do you ship those things?
They are if you ship them complete, but I design them to come apart if they're big.
Okay.
Yeah. And then sometimes if it's worth it, I'll fly it out or ship it in pieces and then meet it if it works out, and then I'll put them together. But they're pretty durable. They're not plaster anymore. They're sculpted in Magic Sculpt, which epoxy clay.
I got mine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got mine right here, man. I love this thing. This thing is fucking awesome.
So, yeah, so I just bend metal, and then I wrap it, and then I add the clay onto it, and then I paint it with different resins, so it looks like glass or ceramic.
Yeah,
it's pretty lightweight, but they're pretty strong. And if you crack them, if they break, they're pretty easy to fix.
How's the output with something like that? Like when you're super busy and you have a bunch of orders, does it get to be kind of like overwhelming at times where you have like if you got a bunch of work to do? Or
once I have the shapes made,
yeah,
it's kind of a relief because I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't have to think too hard.
Yeah.
If I have to come up with something different, that takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just have to I'm good at deadlines, but if I have too much time, I'm just really slow. Something new.
One of the things about the house that just blows my mind is just how every room is different and how it's constantly like evolving. Sure, there's main rooms and things like that, but you're always tweaking on this place. And we'll link some photos and stuff like that for people to check it out. But how would you describe your house?
Sometimes I call it a showroom, but I also call it like a sketchbook. So I try not to let it get too precious, although some of this newer stuff is pretty cool. Like I got a interior from an old Horace Trumbauer mansion that was being demolished, and it's all the beautiful carved wood from like 19...
I saw that last time we were there. You just had it. You hadn't like finished it or put it up yet, I don't think, but it was it looked absolutely insane.
Yeah, my friends from the skate park, Andrew and Carlos helped me out with that. It was cool because it was like a massive job, but I got it cheap. When my friends are working on it, it actually motivates me to get stuff done in the studio, to pay for it.
Yeah.
That was really actually helpful. And then they had them rebuild the whole back of the house within the last couple of years. So I was just constantly I was hustling to make money to pay everybody, but it really worked out great. Because I would have done all that stuff myself. I did everything myself pretty much the first 10 years or something. And so then I was like, well, these guys are better at it. And I need to be working up here and get this stuff done. So I feel like I'm actually working with them, even though I'm doing something different.
Yeah.
When I decided that I wasn't, this is my first house I ever bought. And I was like, this is going to be the only house I'm getting. Once I did that, I'm like, I'm going to do whatever I want.
I could see you like doing some weird shit, like, burying yourself in the wall or something in there.
Just hide up there somewhere. I've always wanted like a tiki dark ride type room. Because I grew up in the summers in Wildwoods, which was a beach town with like a 50s style. And so they had all like Castle Dracula and Wacky Shack. And I love that stuff. Yeah. So I've been collecting a lot of stuff that's from that era or whatnot.
Has it ever freaked you out? Like, have you ever been like kind of sitting alone in your own house and been like, what was that? Or, anything like that? Because it's what is it? It's 3 floors plus a basement, right?
Yeah. It's like 1890s.
Which is 1890s. Do you know any history of the house? Was there been any weird shit that's happened there? Any ghosts or anything like that?
Well, the first night I stayed here, I was by myself, and it was creepy. It was turning to a doctor's office in the 40s. Because there was like weird hallways, and it hadn't been lived in a long time. So it smelled funny, and the whole back of the house was rotted, and actually animals would come in. And the neighborhood was pretty sketchy. It's getting sketchy again, but it was pretty sketchy. And I went to sleep in the one room that had a bed that was already here, which is left here. And I had sleep paralysis. I totally heard like the front door open, and
wow.
I heard something jump through the window on me, and I was just like, I just remember laying in bed like for a while. Okay, that movement, that was sleep paralysis. There's nothing here. This house likes me, and I never had a problem. until I started calling this room on the top floor the haunted room, because there was like this weird shadow in the curtain, and it freaked me out really bad one night. But it was just a weird reflection of a prism from the chandelier hitting the. It looked like Edgar Allan Poe was standing behind this curtain. Yeah. So as a joke, I started calling it the haunted room, and then it started to feel weird. And then I get that feeling when you leave that room, you walk down the highway, you kind of feel something in the back of your neck, like, I was like, oh, what did I do? And but the worst was my brother introduced me to this website called newspapers.com. And we were driving to the beach, and he was just on his phone checking it out. I was like, what's your address?
Oh, no.
But he started finding stuff. And he was just, but most of it was like one like classifieds from like the 1800s. It's pretty crazy. And then he starts talking about, oh, poison widow ring. Oh, this woman, she was selling poison in Philadelphia poison ring. And I thought he was joking. So this woman lived in my house. She worked at a tailor shop right around the corner. And she would sell life insurance policies. And then she'd sell them witch's brew to wives who would kill their husbands, and then they'd collect the insurance money. And this is a big thing. You look it up on Wikipedia. It's put off your poison ring, and this is in the 30s. And like a lot of people went to the electric chair over that. Like I think like 50 people over the whole thing. And so the woman who lived in the house, I think her name was Rose. She disappeared. Like somehow she got away with it. Even though she had, I think, at least 3 husbands.
Oh.
Died. So once I heard that, I started imagining stuff, and I just started thinking, like, I would just like focus on the sounds. I was like, wow, because I found out there was a lot of people who lived in my house. I bought the house from a musician, this woman, Tina, and her husband was a doctor. So they they had a doctor's office here, and she taught piano lessons in the basement. And one thing that was really funny, there was a baby grand piano in my basement, and my friend wanted it, so he got it out. And like a week later,
oh no, you heard
I hear piano playing.
Oh no!
And it's coming from the basement. I'm like, this is so cool. I was so excited. I was like, this is the coolest thing. Like I could hear a ghost piano in my basement, and it was so clear. And they kept messing up. It was like a kid practicing. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I realized it was the neighbor. They had their upright next to the wall. It sounded like it was coming out of the basement. I was like, man, that would have been cool. So back to the poison ring, I would just do this thing where I would try to imagine what it was like in the house in the 30s with like, I don't know how many people lived here. They had in different rooms. And like, okay, if they could hear each other, like if there was fighting, and just trying to think. And I started focusing on it, and I feel like I started conjuring it. And it started really getting bad feelings. But then I went back to my first thought. The first day I stayed here, I was like, there's nothing here. And that's all it is. And my friend Dennis McNett was over, and he explained to me that like they have all they could give you is anxiety, the spirits or whatever.
Yeah.
The only power they have is anxiety. And I'm just denying that they're there, or be okay with it. And I haven't had a problem since. I don't get that feeling anymore. But it was like a thing. I was kind of getting bummed out because I was like, I think I invited something.
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel if you got a house like you have, I feel like you have to have some sort of, you got to know that you're inviting some sort of paranormal activity just by what you're doing to the house, the way you're living. And so you got to have that power over the paranormal. And that's what you're saying. You have that. Hey, guess what? Nothing's happening here.
Yeah.
And then that's it. Then everyone, because if I was a ghost, I would want to live at your place. The band that I sing in the Bronx, we shot a video at your house for a song called Side Effects. We came in off of Europe. That was a crazy time. So we came in straight from a European tour, jet lagged as hell. We had Christian Jacobs, who we've had on the podcast. Him and his buddy were directing the video. We get to Philly. It was the night that the Eagles won the division championship, and we're going to the Super Bowl. And so it was just like the crowd, the streets were just packed. It was people were just raging. And we were just trying to film a video in basically less than 48 hours, I think is what we had, but we were flying and we did it, man. And it came out fucking great. It was an awesome time. Speaking of music, so, you've been around a lot of great, amazing cultures and skateboarding, music, photography, things like that. You've got an amazing shot of Ryan Dunn jumping off the balcony at the Trocadero, RIP. First of all, musically speaking, what are you into? Have you always been kind of like a counterculture, punk rock, metal type of guy, or where do you lean?
When I go to see shows, I like metal shows, like high energy shows.
Yeah.
I think my go-to is like more like garage.
Yeah.
Psychedelic. It's for what I usually listen to at the house, and I don't listen to much metal at home, maybe in the car, but with BAM, when we were working on the Viva La Bam stuff and all that.
Yeah, that's right.
It was much fun because having Slayer play in his backyard, and for some reason they let me on stage. So I was photographing the band while they were playing on the stage, like walking around them. I don't know why they let me do that. I mean, I didn't take very great pictures because I was like so nervous. I was switching between film and digital because I didn't know what to shoot because I just got digital. It was like 2002, and that was awesome. But then like Turbo Negro, like it was wild. And then I don't even know where to start with all that.
Yeah, because he's a Pennsylvania guy, right? That all that stuff was there.
Yeah. I knew him since he was a kid, and shooting photos and whatnot. And so when they did the TV show, I was there, just basically just documenting whatever, and just because it was really fun.
Yeah,
I mean, it was wacky, So all my friends were working on it too, so it was like really really fun for a few years,
That's awesome, man. What do you listen to when you're working? Do you listen to anything? Do you podcast? Do you listen to music, or what do you do while you work?
I love Wonder Muddle. They're based out of Bristol. They just have really good videos and just different music. They do a lot of stuff with Brian Jonestown Massacre,
Cool.
And there's a bunch of different stuff. But it's just like a really fun thing to keep on. I bought a TV for my studio like I don't know 5 years ago, just to keep me focused and sit. So I'll try to watch stuff. I don't really know what to watch, but I'm really bad at watching TV. I was like, just put on YouTube stuff, just to keep me like grounded. Like, all right, don't move, Because also the other thing good about the sculpting I do is when I mix the clay, you only have a certain amount of time before it gets too hard to work with. So that keeps me grounded. I usually listen to complete albums with bands or but it's more mellowy, more psychedelic garage stuff I listen to, I think.
Just creatively speaking, you are a guy who's, really kind of created his own lane, and I know there's a lot of people out there nowadays who are looking to do the same, so I know advice is a tough question, but you've managed to make a living out of being creative. You're a hardworking guy, you're a creative guy, you've gone from photographer to sculptor. What are some things you've learned along the way that kind of helped you out?
But definitely what my dad told me, just to have a lot of things to fall back on. And that's what I did. And so it's also realizing insecurities, understanding kind of what being pretentious is, where I would say I was very pretentious in my 20s when I was trying to do things I thought I was supposed to do to get in where the people were, that I wanted to be on that level. And it wasn't until I did it for myself first. So actually my formula was like, do something that I want and not worry about like elitist, like, contemporary art stuff, and not worry about that audience. Like if younger people like it just instantly, then okay, that's cool. I mean, I was lucky in that I found a niche, but also time. I think one thing if I could tell myself when I was younger is like two things I didn't really understand was practice and don't get discouraged if your idea doesn't come out right away, because it might take a while. Like the first chandelier I made, I didn't pull that off, and I did it again. I was like, this looks better, and then I did it again. I was like, this looks better. I was like, well, I got all the ones I need for the room. I don't feel like I'm ready. And this is at a time too when I would be critical of artists who just kept repeating themselves. And I didn't understand why they were kind of doing the same thing all the time until I started doing it. I was like, no, I can't stop. It's like I haven't gotten bored of doing this yet. And I would be critical of the artist when I was younger, like, can you do something else? But then I get it, it's like you just improve, but so it just takes time, and do what you want for yourself first. Try to make it marketable if you want to try to sell it, but otherwise don't worry about it, but make it for yourself first.
How much of a role does inspiration play in what you do?
I would say a lot, and a lot of it comes from other artist friends. Like I've often would use like palettes from different artists who I like, and it may not look anything like theirs, but I often mention Camille Rose Garcia because she's one of my favorite artists. So I would like kind of steal the color schemes. Although when I finally finish what I'm doing, it may not look anything like it. But there's stuff like that. The next big project I want to do with the house is this shell grotto. So that's a big room downstairs. It used to be a built-on kitchen, which had kind of turned into like this tiki little lounge. And then that whole room got cut out and rebuilt. So it's got like 12-foot ceilings. It's not huge, but it's a tall, kind of narrow room. And that's going to be all shells. And there's a painting by Gustave Moreau, I think. And it's Solomon. It's like it's from like John the Baptist got his head cut off.
Okay. Yeah.
Image, and there's like a sanctuary lamp, and she's holding. It's one of the apparition. There's a bunch of different versions of this sort of painting, and it's the feel of this. This is like almost like a Byzantine style, like, temple, and that's what I want the showroom to feel like. But I think a lot of ways I get ideas or inspiration, it would be seeing a glimpse of something and then imagining what my fuzzy memory saw or what the rest of it is, and then kind of playing on that imagination of like, oh, wow, I wish I could go back in time and see this. Or if I just think about or wonder what it, and guess or make up, imagine what it was, that could be pretty fun too. So yeah, just a glimpse of things. And my fuzzy memory is kind of good sometimes unless I accidentally copy somebody that I forgot.
But that's cool though. That makes sense to kind of like, put something that you see that you think is cool and then kind of run it through your own filter, you know, and then just kind of imagine what it would be like and then try to make it, I mean, that's a pretty simple but unique process, it's really cool.
I mean, I think it's good to be it's good to emulate people as long as you credit them. I want people to kind of do what I'm doing. Actually, a big part of the inspiration is photographing old churches that were being demolished and stuff in Philadelphia in the 90s. A lot of churches got torn down. And I would go in there with my older brother and photograph them before they were gone. It was just like so depressing to see these beautiful interiors and buildings. Yeah. I didn't have money. Of course, I can't save it. But I figured, well, at least I could. They're like, oh, these are lost trades. People don't do this anymore. It's like, no, we can keep doing this. We can make it even cooler if we wanted to.
What do you got, coming up the rest of this year, going into next year? You got any work coming available? Where can people kind of follow what you're doing?
Well, mostly on my Instagram. It's the only thing about me. Facebook, I got locked out on my phone, so I don't. I'm going to be making a bunch of work for Mortal Machine Gallery down in New Orleans.
Awesome.
I'll be doing something there in October. I like that gallery because it's right on Royal Street in the French Quarter.
Yeah.
And they're cool. They've been a great place for me. And I could just make whatever I want and they'll just keep it in there.
Yeah, I could see that being a cool gallery and just place for you to show your work in New Orleans, because it does have a very, New Orleans there's a lot of great art and a lot of great galleries in New Orleans too.
Mm-hmm. I felt so at home there. Well, I first went there back in the 90s, but the first time I went back after a while, I was like, just felt so at home. I don't think I could ever live there, but I definitely like having it as like a sort of a second city. I used to think of LA as my second city, but I haven't been there in so long and it changed so much. I'm kind of sad, but I miss all my friends on the West Coast. So I do have to make it out there soon to visit. In like downtown LA, I had a studio with Liz McGrath and Dan Quintana and ESAL, and I mean, it was so much fun.
Dang, dude, that sounds awesome.
Then everything changed so fast. So hopefully it'll be getting better again.
Yeah. How's Philly doing? Is it crazy right now, or is it better or worse than it's been?
It's bad. Yeah, I'm not too happy. I mean, I'm okay where I am, but it's just sad to see.
You know, the one thing is life enough is a struggle, but you just want to be able, everyone should at least be able to, you know, struggle in peace. You know,
It's cool. I mean, my studio's right over at Broad Street, so I mean, I see all kinds of crazy stuff.
oh yeah.
But I like that energy too. So that's why my studio's in the front of the house. I can overlook.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. In Huntington, where I live, you know, I mean, it's a shit show a lot of the times because of just it's kind of a political magnet. It's like a destination, summer beach city, all that stuff. But you know, I have like my little place off of, you know, like the piers on 5th Street. I live on 12th Street. But, you know, I grew up in LA. I love being around the action, you know. I like being close to the madness, you know, and being able to go down there and just kind of see some crazy shit. You know, I need that kind of chaos in my life, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
man.
It was fun. That studio right next to what was the name of that place? The venue on Main Street.
Oh, is it?
In downtown LA. Main and Region. The Region? Oh my God, why am I spacing on this?
The Smell?
No, the name for the music venue. Right there. Is it Main and 6th? What is that?
Main and 6th. That's right by where we used to rehearse. I'm not sure.
I am so bad at remembering names.
We're both terrible. I got one last question for you. What do you, Adam Wallacavage, think the meaning of life is?
I think it's about searching for meaning, and because you need meaning, and when you don't have meaning, that's when you really collapse. You know, it's like heaven and hell would be a lack of meaning, I think. So if that makes sense.
That's a great answer, man. Really cool to have you on the podcast and get a little bit more insight into your creative process and all the shit you've done throughout your life. Really, really cool talking to you. Congrats on everything you got going on. I'm stoked to come back and see the house next time we're on tour. Yeah. I think we're coming back in the fall, so we'll see you then.
Take care.
Oh, yeah. That's a wrap on episode 43 of the Sailor Jerry podcast. As always, shout out to our magnificent guest, the one and only Adam Wallacavage. Adam, thank you very much for your time, my man. Appreciate the conversation. You know, truly a unique dude. So thank you very much for your time. Adam, you can follow Adam at Adam_Wallacavage on Instagram. Go ahead and Google his name so you can see pictures of the house. I've also included in the links to the episode the Side Effects Bronx video that was shot in his house, as well as a link to the remaining copies of his book, Monster Size Monsters, the 15 Years of Photography. So check those two things out if you have time. And, you know, of course, you can follow me at 213 Mattman, follow Sailor Jerry at Sailor Jerry, subscribe to the podcast, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and you know, drop a comment in the YouTube. And above all, ladies and gentlemen, just please do not forget that Sailor Jerry Spice Drum is made the old school way, 92 proof, bold and smooth as hell. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Peace.